able to just head it, bring people together, do events. And so I did a lot of free promo work. And also when I did talk to people, I researched a lot about the industry and a lot about developers. So when I did have conversations with people, even though I've never worked on a big game or a popular studio or anything like that, people like knew that I knew what I was talking about, and I could go back and forth with them.
Yeah, and I did like a very similar process too before, where like was at least several PAXs ago, I reached out to this indie team and just talked to them a bit, and because I was passionate and everything, and I just wanted to like do stuff for them. It was a game that I really believed in and stuff, and just like they both said, that just get out there, start doing stuff, even if it's on a small level, because then when people are asking you those questions, you can be like, yep, here, this is the work that I've done. And then when they see that you're also very excited about it, that just adds another level that's going to stand out among anybody else who's looking for that position.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, what's going on? So my question that I have for you all is, it seems no matter what community you're part of, somebody says something, somebody does something, it goes beyond the pale. So what would you folks say is good advice for kind of a redemption arc, kind of bringing folks back that kind of seem to have a lot of folks going after them at all? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it depends on what you've done.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make clear about that.
Yeah.
But if it's something there's been streamers, like, let's say, who have emailed me and been quite rude, let's say. And then, honestly, like, months down the line, I've gotten an email from them again being like, oh my God, I just, like, realized I'm so sorry. Like, that was such a terrible thing to say. I'm just going, like, putting down your pride and just going and apologizing to the person that you've affected and not expecting them to forgive you, just to be like, hey, I acknowledge that this was a terrible thing I said. No need to forgive me. Just I wanted to let you know I'm sorry and I've been working on it or whatever. Then honestly, that does so much.
Yeah, people can change. Like, I think there's probably some there's some stuff that might be harder to redeem, but there's nothing saying that you screw up and you acknowledge that publicly and you say like, look, I made a mistake. I'm learning. Here's what I'm doing to rectify that kind of thing. Move on. But like some stuff is hard to come back from too. So.
Yeah, I think to build off that, since your specific language was redemption arc, using that as kind of framework, I think typically actions speak louder than words, which of course is a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. You have to show that you are willing to grow and learn from things. As previously mentioned, again, does depend on what you've done. But there is also a component of like legitimately being, humble about these sorts of things, coming to terms with the implications of whatever your actions or words would be, and genuinely speaking to those. There's any number of tutorials, on the internet about how to do apologies. Ignore every last one of them because they're all terrible.
Oh, sweet. Hey, thank you, guys. I saw the panel name, and I'm like, I gotta visit.
It's a good fit, man.
How's it going?
Good.
That's teamwork.
So a question I kind of had to all of you. You were talking earlier about when it comes to like meeting somebody, you want to try and get to know the person, start to relate to them, and actually care more about the individual rather than what you can get out of them. And that's something that I've actually kind of struggled with for the longest time. I feel like I've been obsessed with self-development for as long as I can remember. And I always feel like whenever I'm trying to talk to somebody, if I find out that I could probably get something from them, like, this person's like a manager, I could talk to them to see if I can like get a promotion. Or, I see a cute girl, I want to talk to her so I can exclusively get her as a girlfriend or whatever. And I realize instead of thinking of it in that mentality, it's better off that I should actually care more about the person than what I can get out of it. And I realize that's like a very toxic behavior to try and take advantage and use people. And I wanted to know if that was something that you guys have experienced in the past, and what's a good thank you. And what's a good mentality to kind of like, or a good mindset to kind of break out of that?
I have a lot of advice for that. First of all, I want to appreciate your honesty there. Like, you're awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
That's huge.
Because that was pretty vulnerable. I mean, there's cheesy things out there, like if you...
Oh my God.
Panel's over.
Whoa.
If you want to be interesting, be interested. Like, you've heard those cheesy things before. But really, I think what it comes... Because I'm also obsessed with personal development and Tony Robbins and all those other dudes. Because, I wanted to get better. For me, it was stop overthinking it. Stop being. That's where I lost a lot of my anxiety, and I felt comfortable with myself. Was again not having expectations of what they're going to say or what I'm going to say. It's just people that are comfortable, and like, what does confidence mean? Like, just be confident, be yourself. What does that mean? It means to again just not go into it and like already have questions in your mind, and again practice. We've all said before. So hopefully this PAX will be a beginning for you to do that. But thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, I would also just like to, I'm sorry if I could.
No, go.
Mindfulness is so important to that, and being present in the moment that you're in. I think like Andrew and our initial conversation is a really solid example of this, because like I had done podcasts and radio-esque stuff for games previously, and so obviously when he said that's something that he worked on, immediately my mind goes to, of course that's something I'd be interested in being a part of at some point, but that's not really what the conversation is right now, and I don't want to direct it there. Like, I want to see through kind of the discussion we're having right now. I want to see how that ends, if it goes its natural course, and if that turns into something, that's fine. It eventually did. We talked for 3 days before I even mentioned, like, hey, that's something I might be interested if you ever have an opening. And the conversations were just bouncing off ideas and concepts. And if you actually put yourself in the moment that you're in to kind of focus on that, it's legitimately really fun. Like, I liked the stuff we were talking about before any opportunity ever came of it. So I guess just keeping that in the back of your mind.
Go ahead.
Real quick, I can completely relate with you, because when I was starting this endeavor and everything that I'm doing now, and let's face it, we're all going to be like, we have a kind of a survival instinct to us as a whole. We are human beings, right? We're gonna think that way, and it's not bad to think that way. But still, being mindful and self-aware of that is good. And what I found worked for me really well, like self-improvement, listening to podcasts, people like Tony Robbins and that type of stuff. Like, over time, what I realize is, what's going to fulfill me? Is it really just looking for that main objective I want to hit? Because you know what? At the end of the day, I've realized in my own self-awareness is that's not going to fulfill me. Yes, I might get that goal. I might make more money. I might do whatever that is. In the end, you're not going to feel as fulfilled unless you start thinking about, outwardly, outside of what's your own main interest. And once you start doing that, that's when, all the cool stuff starts happening. So it's really awesome that you're recognizing this, and I can completely relate, because I was totally there before too. But then once you really start focusing more, you're going to you'll get to that point, and you'll know it. And when you do, you start getting even more excited about it.
Wanting to better yourself is good, but not if it means stepping on somebody else, either in their feelings or in their time, in order to do that. So as long as you're respectful of those elements, those things, then yes, you should want to better yourself. But just keep that in mind, I think.
Okay. So kind of to recap, don't overthink, be open-minded. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get anything out of it, and try to figure out your fulfillment, what you want to be fulfilled with, and don't overdo self-development. Basically, right?
Don't step on other people
in order to get
too,
in order to elevate yourself. Elevate yourself
don't hurt other
with
people,
help. Other people can help you, but don't step on them to do it.
Yes. Also, not just for you, but for everyone. If you can afford it, go to therapy. It helps.
Cheers to that.
So underrated.
Awesome. By the way, that's like 5 more action items, so y'all just got a 2-for-1 deal.
Hi, thank you for the panel, first of all. I work a full-time job not in the industry, and so sometimes I feel like I have to be marketing myself in my free time all the time, like going out. If I'm not writing, if I'm not editing something, if I'm not talking to people, that I'm falling behind. So how do you find the right balance when you only have a limited amount of time?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say really quick, there is a huge difference between being busy and being productive. First of all, I used to be like this where I was like a hamster in a treadmill and I was just going nowhere and I was doing so much work and everyone's like, you're like the hardest worker ever. And I'm like, but why am I not getting any results? Like that was my life for like 3 years and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't progressing. And you have to like sometimes like really take a step back and have like an objective, detached point of view of like what you're doing and being like, what is my priorities? Is there any way that I can do less? Because sometimes doing less will actually propel you forward because you're focusing on just one thing. That's it. I'm done.
And she's right. It's funny. Well, before Star started talking, there's a book called, I think, The One Thing. It's an amazing book. It talks about that too. But I can relate to you completely. I had a full-time job for a long time and building up a company on top of that. And I have a family as well. So that put me in a situation at one point, which it got a little dark only because it's like I'm so passionate about all these things and trying to devote so much attention to them. Like, obviously, you want to do good at your day job. Obviously, you want to build your company. And if you have like a personal life or family on top of that, you want to be a good member of that family or you're just here. And what I'm going to say to that is it's okay if you do get behind, right? Life happens. You need to give yourself breaks and stuff because at one point in my life, I was probably in the similar mindset thinking like, hey, I'm getting behind and I let it bother me. I let it like a self-critic saying, oh, you're not going to be successful if you do this or whatever. Don't let it bother you. Be okay with the fact that sometimes you just need to take a break. And if you're falling behind, it's okay. And going back to the focus on one thing, that way you're still going to feel like, hey, I'm succeeding at this. I'm making progress. It's not a race. Don't ever think of it as a race because once you do, you're going to be that much harder on yourself. And it can hurt. It can definitely hurt you. And when that starts happening, you're not going to make anywhere near as much progress as you would like to anyways. So don't be hard on yourself.
Thank you.
Hi. First of all, a lot of the points that have been made before me, I can relate to wholeheartedly. I've been out of undergrad for almost a decade. I went in as an artist. I wanted to be a graphic designer. I wanted to be involved in some sort of pop culture journalism type of deal. I'm still doing that now. I'm not making any money off of it. And a lot like you, I've been spinning so many wheels because I just want something to work out. I want to be acknowledged. And I found myself inadvertently stepping on people to do that. I burned a lot of bridges, ended a lot of good friendships, but that was because I was exhibiting behaviors that I saw other people showing because they seemed to have it together. And now in hindsight, I had to cut by cutting those people off and by slowing down and getting into where I need to be in my life, I kind of realized that like I don't have to dedicate myself to making a living off my hobbies. I don't have to solely make that my focus. It's where it got me in that, and again, seeing a therapist helped too. To the point where like now I'm looking to become an art therapist, and I still write. Write for nerdcaliber.com actually, but I'd like to know is like with all that in mind, should I just stay the course? What would be your advice for my situation?
Wow.
So,
sorry. Specifically, should you continue your hobby doing writing?
Should I continue to write? And if so, how would I go about networking as a pop culture journalist?
Do you like writing?
I do.
You should keep writing. Yeah. If you want to do it for a living, then the question becomes: would you still enjoy it? And like, I don't know. I think there's this idea that like this is a tricky thing. If I like bicycling, it doesn't mean that I want to do the Tour de France, right? So if you're doing the Tour de France, like it's a different kind of work and energy, and sometimes it can not lead to good results for people emotionally and physically and all sorts of other things.
Well, I'm also a creative too, so and I totally see where you're coming from with that. I love to draw. I don't see myself ever doing it for a living. I don't see myself ever working for Marvel or DC or anything like that because
Yep.
I don't have the work ethic, and it just seems very taxing.
So in that case, then, like Neil was saying, I would say just if you like writing or doing those things, then do them because that's a form of fulfillment.
Right.
But if it becomes like work, then it's just going to burn you out, and then the thing you like is going to be something you may despise, and you don't want to do that either. So awesome. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you.
I think we have time for one more, and we'll be around afterwards too, outside of